The results from Australia and China paint a brutal, no-nonsense picture. Double DNF in Shanghai, battery failures, and a car that straight up cannot finish a full race distance. If you only look at that, the answer feels obvious. Aston Martin is in serious trouble, and it looks like there's no escape. But that take misses the biggest thing that really went down in China. It's not about the retirements, and it's not about the lap times. The real story is what was happening behind the scenes, in the garage, deep in the data, and in those low-key conversations between engineers who are just now starting to figure this mess out. Because the real issue at the heart of Aston Martin's 2026 season isn't setup, and it's not the chassis either. This isn't something you fix with a shiny new floor or a clever tyre call. The problem hits deeper. It's the Honda power unit. And more than that, it's what that power unit is doing to the car and the drivers trying to handle it. Aston Martin showed up in Melbourne already on the back foot before they even turned a proper lap. The wind tunnel program? Delayed by months, pre-season testing, barely any mileage compared to the rest of the grid. They only had 2 batteries, no real backups, and a power unit that was already throwing up serious red flags during testing. Every single lap wasn't just a run, it was a gamble. And everyone knew it. Every single run had to be handled like a survival mission, not a push for speed. This wasn't a team chasing performance, it was a team trying to stop its own car from tearing itself apart. Alonso was forced to retire, no way around it. Stroll kept going, but only after long stretches stuck in the garage, sitting still while the crew tried to hold things together, and even then he finished way down the order on laps. And that final result? It barely told the real story at all. It didn't show what the car truly is, or what it could be. The mileage out of Melbourne was all over the place, fragmented, messy, and almost useless when it came to building a solid development plan. Engineers rolled into Shanghai carrying data that created more confusion than clarity because the car just hadn't been run enough, in enough conditions, to connect the dots properly. At the center of all this chaos is one brutal issue: vibration. The Honda power unit is kicking out oscillations so aggressive they're damaging the battery systems the 2026 rules depend on. And it's not stopping there. It's even hitting the drivers physically while they're in the car. This isn't just about discomfort, not even close. Newey called it out back in Melbourne, and he didn't sugarcoat it. His warning was loud and clear, no room for misunderstanding. If these vibrations don't get fixed, they come with a serious risk. Long-term nerve damage to the driver's hands and arms. That's not speculation, that's real. Alonso backed it up in China after pulling out on lap 32. He said the car was producing more vibration in that session than at any other point all weekend, and physically, he just couldn't keep going. He's 44 years old, still pushing at the highest level, and he chose to stay in the sport for this new era because he believed in what Aston Martin was building. But now, he's stuck in a car that literally limits how long he can drive it, not because it's too fast, not because of tyre wear, but because of what the engine is sending straight through the chassis and into his hands. These vibrations travel right through the steering wheel and hit the driver directly. Over time, it leads to numbness, weaker grip, and a loss of that precise touch drivers rely on to feel every tiny movement of the car. That connection is everything in Formula One, and it's being stripped away. Stroll didn't last long either. He retired in China after just 9 laps, with what looked like a battery failure. And that's the key point. This isn't 2 different issues. It's the same problem showing up in 2 brutal ways. The same vibrations hurting the drivers are also damaging the electrical systems that keep the car alive. Melbourne left Aston Martin almost in the dark, but China exposed the problem in a way they couldn't ignore, no matter how bad it looked. For the first time, Aston Martin actually got real, competitive laps in proper race conditions, with traffic, pressure, and everything that comes with it. Both cars took part in every session across the full Shanghai weekend, and both Alonso and Stroll made it through the sprint. That alone is a big shift. The total mileage in China was way higher than in Melbourne, and that gap matters more than people realize. More laps don't just mean more running. they mean more situations. Running in traffic hits different compared to clean air. A restart under safety car conditions puts totally different stress on the energy systems than a smooth green flag run. These moments expose how the power unit, battery and chassis all interact under pressure, and that's something you just can't fake in simulations. Crack even admitted how this would look from the outside. He said people might laugh if he claimed they made progress, because the results don't show it at all. But the real metric here wasn't lap time or finishing position, it was laps completed. And on that front, China was actually a step forward compared to Melbourne. Most importantly, the team isn't lost in the dark anymore. They're finally starting to connect cause and effect. When something breaks, they're beginning to understand why. When the car behaves in a weird way, they now have data to explain it. There's a structure forming, a clearer picture coming together, and Crack laid it out in simple, no-nonsense terms. You find bugs, you find issues where you ask, why did that happen? And you work through it so you know for next time. That mindset right there marks a turning point. It's the shift from total confusion to actually understanding what's going wrong, and that's the first real step toward fixing anything. Honda's trackside general manager, Shintaro Ori, didn't hide from it either after the Chinese Grand Prix. He straight up said there was no excuse for the reliability and performance issues. That's a huge admission from a manufacturer known for precision and top-level engineering. But at the same time, it's real, and it shows they know how serious this situation has become. Yes, the team made small gains between Melbourne and China when it came to managing how vibrations hit the battery systems. But let's be clear, it wasn't enough. Not enough to finish a full race, and definitely not enough to protect the drivers from what those vibrations are doing to their bodies. The problem is still right there front and center, and this is where it gets even more complicated. What Honda is dealing with isn't just a quick tweak, it's structural. Trying to reduce vibration damage to the battery is one challenge, but stopping those same forces from reaching the driver, that's a completely different fight. The chassis can only absorb so much, so even if you ease the pressure on one part, the energy still travels straight through the steering column and into the driver's hands. At the end of the day, there's only one real fix: cut the problem off at the source inside the power unit itself. And that's not something you patch overnight. Alonso made that crystal clear. He said the engine in China was basically unchanged from Australia because there just wasn't enough time between races for Honda to make any serious upgrades. The real chance to fix this doesn't come during race weekends, it comes in the gaps between them. That's when Honda's engineers can go all in with extended simulations, break down real race data, and start building proper solutions instead of quick patches. And now, with Bahrain and Saudi Arabia cancelled, there's suddenly a 5-week gap before Miami. That window just got way bigger. This might actually be the biggest turning point in Aston Martin's season so far, and it has nothing to do with what happened on track. Suzuka is up next, and that circuit exposes everything. High-speed corners, long flat-out sections, and a layout that demands both aerodynamic efficiency and serious mechanical stability. There's nowhere to hide on a track like that. Honestly, it's the last place you'd want to take a car that still can't be pushed to its limit. But they don't get to choose. The calendar says Suzuka, and that's where they go. Every lap they manage to complete, there becomes another critical piece of data, feeding into a recovery plan that's finally starting to take shape. But the real opportunity comes right after that. The cancellation of Bahrain and Saudi Arabia has created a massive 5-week break between Japan and Miami, the longest gap in the first half of the 2026 season. For most teams, that's just extra time to tweak aero or refine the chassis. But for Honda, this is everything. This is the kind of window they desperately needed. Time to dig deep into the core issue, attack the vibration problem at its source, and come back with something that actually changes the game. The calendar didn't plan it this way, but for Aston Martin and Honda, this break might be the lifeline they couldn't find on track. 5 weeks like this can completely change the direction of a season, but only if Honda gets it right. This isn't just about small improvements anymore, this is about whether they can actually solve the core issue or come back with the same problem dressed up slightly better. Because if the vibrations are still there in Miami, then everything they've learned so far won't mean much at all. Inside Honda, this is where the real pressure kicks in. Engineers aren't just reviewing data, they're under the spotlight to deliver something that works in the real world, not just in simulations. Every piece of information from Melbourne, from Shanghai, and from Suzuka will be pushed to its limit, trying to find a breakthrough that hasn't shown itself yet. And the scary part, there's no guarantee they'll find it in time. Problems like this don't always respond to more time, they respond to the right solution. If the root cause inside the power unit isn't fully understood, 5 weeks can disappear fast without anything meaningful changing. For Aston Martin, Miami won't just be another race. It'll be a moment of truth. Either the car shows up in a completely different state, more stable, more predictable, actually able to run consistently. Or it exposes that this problem goes deeper than anyone hoped. Because at this point, it's not just about performance anymore. It's about whether this project can even function the way it was designed to. And when the lights go out in Miami, there will be nowhere left to hide. 5 full weeks with no interruptions, that's a rare chance in Formula One. Time to run deeper simulations, bring in real hardware changes, and test actual fixes for those brutal vibrations. This isn't rushed anymore, this is proper engineering time aimed straight at the heart of the problem. The goal is simple: show up in Miami with a power unit that's been seriously worked on, not just patched together. But whether that actually shows in the results? That's still a big question. The reality is this vibration issue is complex. Even with a huge effort, the gains might only come step by step at first. Don't expect a miracle overnight. But here's the key difference. The direction is finally clear. The team now understands the problem well enough to attack it properly. And compared to Australia, where they didn't even know what was going wrong, that's a massive shift. The gap to the front is still huge, no point pretending otherwise. The car is still fragile, still unpredictable at times. But Aston Martin isn't guessing anymore. They're working with real answers. China didn't fix the car, the results made that obvious. But it gave them something they didn't have before, a real framework. Cause and effect now live in the data, not in guesswork or theory. They finally understand what Honda's engine is doing, not just to the car, but to the drivers holding the wheel under all that stress. And now there's a direction, a path forward that actually makes sense. The big question now stretches beyond just one race. Japan, Miami, and everything after, it all depends on one thing. Can this growing understanding turn into reliability fast enough? And can that reliability turn into performance before the season slips too far away? Alonso still believes, Stroll still believes. And this 5-week gap before Miami is the first real, uninterrupted shot Honda has had to go after the root of the issue. Whether it's enough? No one can say yet. But one thing is clear. The trajectory, even if it's small, has finally started to shift.